This year we celebrate the 80th year of the Goodwill success story. We celebrate the legacy embodied in our past, the success of the present moment, and the promise of our time to come. In the years just following the Great Depression, Edward Gallagher Sr. and his son and daughter-in-law were selling household items, including a Bible, door to door for the L.B. Price Mercantile Company. Ed Sr. had heard of a book bindery in Chicago that was stuck with 22,000 already bound Bibles of destitute stock. A deal was struck with the bindery owner, allowing the Gallaghers to pay for Bibles as they sold them. This enabled the trio to go out on their own as tri-state distributors, representing North Carolina, Virginia, and Tennessee. Their territory expanded rather quickly, and they had already learned how to hire and develop salespeople from their days with L.B. Price. So they needed a new name. This is when Bud's young wife, Ivoly, chimed in. "We're really trying to spread goodwill, so why don't we call ourselves that?" And thus, in 1938, Goodwill Distributors, now Goodwill Publishers, was born. The organization grew rapidly as the Gallaghers became masters of sales development. Goodwill became a dream realized with sales organizations all across the country. Tragedy would strike, however, as Ed Gallagher, the driving force of the organization in its infancy, passed away in 1943. It was time for others to rise to the occasion, and with the help of many loyal workers and leaders outside of the family, Bud Gallagher took the reins of Goodwill to manage the still growing organization with a finely tuned and principled sense of mission. For the next 30 years, Bud would help secure for Goodwill an impeccable reputation in the worlds of publishing as well as sales and marketing. In 1953, the company, having established close contacts with various well-known publishers and printers such as Doubleday and R.R. Donnelley, among many others, published its first Bible. Thus began a new era, and by the end of the decade, Goodwill had become the largest distributor of Bibles in the country. Helping to develop new products was the Reverend John Bradley, an Oxford-educated priest from Scotland who had become one of Bud Gallagher's dearest friends. Father Bradley's key role at different times in the company history has had a lasting effect on the organization. And as the company grew, so did the product line in direct sales, including a scriptural encyclopedia for the home, register books, and other products for funeral homes, developed in part by the first third-generation family leader, Bud and Ivoly's first son, Buddy Gallagher. Buddy had been by his parents' side from the very beginning. Another project of note was 2 volumes combined into one, Our Christian Heritage and Our American Heritage, which made up Hope of the Nation, penned by the historian Nelson Beecher Keys and Bud Gallagher himself. And with Father Bradley's help, Goodwill had also entered the Catholic publishing world with highly illustrated family Bibles, an array of devotional materials, and in the 1960s, an encyclopedic set entitled The Catholic Layman's Library. Very gradually, direct sales began to give way to a business-to-business model of marketing. Soon thereafter, a sponsorship model of sales came into being, and yet another transitional era of Goodwill sales emerged and began to flourish. Specialized keepsake volumes, paid for by community businesses, were distributed to the bereaved, to newlyweds, and to school-aged children, and became the mainstay of the sponsorship model. Dr. Patrick Gallagher, Bud's next son, a college professor and another third-generation leader, came on board during these years, selling both in direct sales and in the sponsorship companies. He was a natural, and with a background in teaching, moved into sales management positions seamlessly. As the 1970s wore on, Bud Gallagher succumbed to chronic illness and passed away in 1979 after having nurtured the fledgling organization into a unique family business success story. Upon Bud's death, his first cousin, James Cherry, who had been in operations for decades, took over as president and held the reins steady during this time. James Cherry's enduring contributions will long be remembered and appreciated as yet another family member devoting most of his working life to the Goodwill endeavor. As time went on, Patrick Gallagher stepped into the presidential role, with Father John Bradley taking over as chairman of the board of directors. Father and Patrick convinced Robert "Bob" Gallagher who had grown up in the company, sold in the field as a young man, and was currently a partner in a successful law practice, to return to Goodwill in a leadership role, first in finance and then eventually, due to the retirement of Patrick, as President and Chief Executive Officer. Under Bob's leadership, the last part of the 20th century saw unprecedented growth in the organization. Bob brought on board Rich Hofling, an old friend from his law school days as corporate attorney, and to become the Chief Financial Officer. This move would continue to prove most beneficial for the company to this day. Jay Briety, a former marketing associate who had worked closely with Patrick Gallagher, began taking a greater role in the management of the sponsorship divisions, working in association with the management staff of those companies, and eventually became the president of this business unit. And under Jay's leadership, the sponsorship divisions grew and prospered. In recent years, Billy Schifiano, Bob Gallagher's son-in-law, under Jay's tutelage, began learning and then managing not only the operational systems of the sponsorship divisions, but also the sales processes as well. And today, Billy, with the aid of talented representatives and the close relationships of a uniquely qualified management team, is on the verge of assuming a major leadership role in the continuation of sponsorship sales after Jay's retirement. Jay Briety's positive mark on Goodwill and his honored place in our history will always be remembered, just as his unique influence will be deeply felt for many years to come. As the old Bible markets of the direct sales days had gone by the wayside, Bob Gallagher desired to create a scenario wherein Goodwill's first offering, the Holy Bible, would return as a viable product. And so began corporate and organizational sales, which grew from the offering of a bereavement Bible for fraternal organizations to an array of products for corporations and other organizations wishing to show their care and concern for their members or their employees. The first fourth-generation leader emerged in Ed Gallagher, Buddy's son, whose work with corporate and organizational sales provided another steady hand. From the very beginning, this business unit was bolstered and enlivened by the energy, passion, and dedication of another of Bob's sons, Sean, who carved out the first corporate and organizational accounts for businesses nationwide, and who leads this business unit today. Sean's keen eye for product development and overall marketing expertise, coupled with a sales acumen recalling the earliest days of Goodwill direct sales, is, with the help of a talented team, adeptly ushering corporate and organizational sales toward continuing success. And into the 21st century, another dream of Bob Gallagher's, the return to specifically Catholic publishing, was about to come true. With the acquisition of an old-line Catholic classics publishing house, the development of Catholic Bible products, and the publishing of an array of Catholic-themed devotional literature, St. Benedict Press was born. Bob's son Connor, a respected lawyer who had clerked for a well-known federal judge and who is now the board director of the National Catholic Publishing Association, oversaw the entire process, from the legal aspects of the acquisition to joining with his father in long-term strategic planning. He continues today as publisher and president of St. Benedict Press with a decade-long record of success. So, from the days of direct sales and the co-founder's dreams to a modern success story of a company with three distinct business units, sponsorship sales, corporate and organizational sales, and St. Benedict Press, Goodwill has marched through the decades with forthright intention, a mission that allows each associate to do well while knowing they are doing good for their fellow man, and the satisfaction that comes with a job well done. 80 years of mission, 80 years of working for the good, 80 years of loyalty, dedication, self-sacrifice, and hard work. This is the legacy. This is the moment. This is the promise of Goodwill.